There's three fair housing topics I'd like to discuss, and they're basically three vocabulary words. And the vocabulary words are steering, blockbusting, and redlining. Now, I'll first start with steering. Steering is the practice of taking people of a particular race to an area based on their race. So again, taking people to a given area based on their race is steering. So, for example, let's say that you live in a city that is predominantly a certain race. And somebody who's of that race comes to you and says, I want to buy a house. So you say, hang on one second. And you pull all of the listings for that particular city. Because in your mind, someone of one ethnicity would be better served living in an area with people of that same ethnic background. Now, that's illegal. That's a practice called steering. Steering is taking people to an area based on their race and the ethnic demographic in that particular area. Now, this can also work the other way around. If someone who's not of that ethnicity wants to buy in that neighborhood, you shouldn't say, oh, well, you wouldn't be comfortable there because there's too many purple people there, for example, right? So steering is taking someone to or away from an area based on race. Now, I'm just using race as a catch-all term for race, creed, color, sexual orientation, national ancestry, religion. I'm just lumping all that into this term race just because it's easier for me to say race than all that other stuff. So again, steering is taking someone to or away from an area based on race. The next term is blockbusting. Two other ways to refer to blockbusting. Blockbusting has two synonyms. Blockbusting could be referred to as panic selling as well as panic peddling. So again, those three terms are synonymous. Blockbusting, panic selling, panic peddling. And that word peddling, what does a peddler do? A peddler is just someone who sells stuff. Now what this is panic selling based on the entry of a race into a given area. This might work where, let's say that a minority family moves into an area. So you get in your car, drive to that area, then start knocking on everybody's doors. And you knock on the door and say, my name is so-and-so with so-and-so real estate. I just want to let you know that a minority family just moved in across the street. If you know what's good for you and your property value, you'll sell now before the whole neighborhood goes to hell. That's blockbusting, also illegal. Now, watch out for this question that you might find on your state exam. The state exam might say, blockbusting could best be described as A, panic selling, B, panic peddling, C, either A or B, D, none of the above. Your answer? C, right? Blockbusting could be described as panic selling as well as panic peddling. Now, the last vocabulary term that we should know about is something called redlining. And redlining really contributed to the decay of a lot of urban areas. But here's what redlining is. Redlining is a refusal to lend based on race or location. Redlining is a refusal to lend based on race/location. Now, what does this mean? This means that a lender or lenders a long time ago used to draw red lines around areas. And they would draw a red box around an area and say, look, we're not going to lend in this area because there's too many minorities in that area. So what would happen is, if a family, let's say a family wanted to sell their property in that region and move somewhere else, they would list their home with a real estate agent, and they might even find a buyer. But that buyer would most likely need to get a loan in order to buy that home. But they wouldn't be able to get a loan because that home was inside those red lines, which made it difficult for people to sell their property. So a lot of times people would just walk away because they put their property up for sale and no buyers could obtain financing to complete the purchase. So redlining is a refusal to lend based on the ethnic demographic of an area. So again, those three terms are obviously all violations of fair housing laws. They are steering, blockbusting, and redlining. I'll tell you about one more question that you might find on the exam, and here's the question. It says, a real estate broker is attempting to take a listing on a home. The sellers indicate to the broker that the home is not to be shown to members of a specific ethnic minority group. The acceptable response by this broker to the request is which of the following? The bottom line is you should not take the listing. Real estate brokers cannot take the listing where such discrimination is attempted.